not seen me tight in the flesh. The man next to me, Mike Kavanagh, is a man who invented the multi-rig. In 1928. 1928? He was only 14 then. Multi-rig, yeah, I mean, this is a rig I probably use for 95% of my fishing for pop-ups. I would say that virtually most rigs I use are pop-up rigs anyway. And the multi-rig is a rig that I've seen the Corda DVDs, and I never realised how important it was that rigs reset themselves, because fish are always taking and sucking the baits. And I think one of the great reasons why the multi-rig works is that it resets itself, and it's only in recent years that I've realised that that's one of the reasons why the multi-rig is so good. And it's a simple rig to tie whatever properties you want to use. I mean, this is the Nash's missing link. You can also use ESP strip tees, Corda N-trap. So I might use certain things, but it really is what you're confident in. So we've got some missing link here. I always use a coating braid. First thing is dead simple. It's just simply, I don't even know what the name of the lock is. I just call it a loop knot. Some people call it a figure 8 or whatever you want to call it. But just simply form a loop. It's a very, very simple loop like that. The big problem that people tend to do is they tend to form that loop and then yank it like mad. If you break the skin of that loop, you've ruined it to start. So really all you're doing is tightening that loop up. I don't even add super glue. So some people want super glue, but I've never had a problem. Just trim it off like that. The next bit is to use a hook of your choice. My hook is the Nash Fang X, it's the standard. But again, it's whatever hook you're confident in. So I've picked actually a nondescript hook that I don't even know. It was just one that was on the stand. It needs to be slightly inturned eye. If the eye is too inturned, it forms too much of an intern. So I was like a slightly interned. Now the hardest thing people do, and I've seen them trying for ages, I used to do this, is to try and get that through there. You will spend hours doing that and it just won't happen. So what I did, something I came up with, but I'm sure somebody else has come up with it first, is I just simply got a bit of dental floss, any dental floss. The waxed version is a bit better because it's easier to stick through the eye of the hook. Just wet that, and then you're using that dental floss to go through that eye of the hook there. That, of course, then pulls your loop through. You would spend hours trying to push that through otherwise. So that is your loop there.
I mean, obviously, that's a curve shank hook.
Yeah.
What, for instance, a Fox Series 5, which has got a really long shank?
I personally don't like it's got to have a curve on it. Yeah. It's got to have a slight curve in it. For me, other people, but there is no, it's like everything else, there is no definitive answer. To me, I've done better with a slight curve. I don't like the eye to be too inturned, otherwise it forms too much of it. That goes in too much of an angle, which I don't like. I don't like it outturned because otherwise it's too straight. I find a slight curve. I don't like a straight one like that stops. I like it slightly turned. What we've got here, once you pull that through like that, then that is only a 3mm ring, which to me is too small, but it's on the stand. I like a larger ring, a 4mm ring, which very few companies do now. 3mm is about the standard size maximum, but I prefer a 4mm. Tackle Box do their own version, a 4mm one, stainless rings, and I think they're only about £1.99 for about 40. So that then just goes over the top of that like that, and that is your multi-ring. As simple as that. I just use that, then just pull that up, just to form the D. So I call it a D. That is your multi-rig like that. That is how. The next thing I do is, I mean, I've got no fingernails whatsoever, is to strip just a very small bit of it off like that to create a wedge there. If you're careful, and I am careful because I've been doing it for a long time, sometimes use scissors just to make sure that it's broken. And that is like what I call a pivot point, because that is a pivot point that allows it to swivel. Once you've done that like that, that in effect is a rig. I would say that's ready for home. That is a rig tied in its very basic form that I will steam at home and then take to the water itself. Now, the thing with steaming is all hook links need to be steamed by being turned like that. Because if you steam them from one side, you only stiffen half or 3/4 of it. So when you're steaming that up with a kettle, you just turn it like that. I always steam all my hook links at home over a plastic kettle. If you do it on the bank and it gets anywhere near, it will part your hook link. So I do all the steaming of mine at home in advance. So literally I'll do 20, 30, 40 at home on the drum. Once that is done, let's imagine that we've gone fishing, we've taken out the rig case. The next thing we need to do, I usually use a little shot with a bit of putty round, is my thing, but here we have, we've got, I think these are the task ones you can use, they're called sinkers.
When you say shot rules?
Yeah. No, tiny, it's tiny. All I'm using that shot is for the putty to go on, either Nash putty or Fox putty. All I'm using that is for a pivot point. So that is in effect, because that's what we've got in front of us today, is I'm just going to show you. Imagine that is a lead shot. If you use anything that slides down the line, then always slide it down the line way. It will always slide down better. As you can see, that goes to where it's broken. That is what I call the pivot point.
I don't know if you can zoom in on that, Nick. Where Jules has got the little slight supple section, and he's pulled down the bead, and he's just basically resting on the concertina area where the coating is.
Because that is what that allows that to move around. In magazines articles, the hook's always pointed that way and the carp always comes that way. They don't always do that, they come from different angles. If that can't turn, then you are really struggling. That is almost like a 360 effect, because that can turn all the way around because of the broken skin, the pivot point. So that is absolutely vitally important to me, that it can pivot. When you've steamed it, that will be steam stiff, and you can create a wedge, like you can create whatever angle you want. So when you've steamed it on the kettle, if you want to steam it like that, or you want to steam it like that, or steam it like that, you can create your own pivot point, and that won't move on even the hardest of casts. So by the time that is actually steamed, it will literally stand up like that. And clearly we're not going to steam this here. A very important part of this is the Nash Big Ring Swivel. It is important that this hook length lays flat. If you tie it to the normal swivel, it can sometimes loop. So by using what is just a bog standard grinner knot to the Nash Big Rig Swivel, like this, standard grin knot, over no more than probably 2 or 3 turns. 1, 2, 3. So we're creating another loop. Again, you've got to be careful you don't pull it too tight. Again, pull it like that. Snip off. I would add a little tiny blob of super glue just to protect that knot, and then I would get a little bit of putty and put the putty over that as well.
Same one, yeah. You're lucky, I don't use the same one. So
not too much, just a little bit of putty over that super glued knot. There. And what happens is that when you cast out and it hits the bottom, that will automatically, what I call, it's a silly term, but it's about flop it over. That will flop it down like that, and that will be at full extension. And whatever way the carp comes, a lot of carp hook themselves when there is a tension between the lead and the hook point. They may prick themselves on the hook, but on a lot of hook links that are not finely extended, they don't hook themselves properly. They prick, but they're not hooked. Because that is a stiff hook link, as it drops down, it's at full extension. So when the carp takes it into its mouth, it almost jars into its mouth, and you'll get a single bleep, then beep. So what you need is that must drop down stiff. With that, I've been using another mistake people make is that when they put the hook link on, they put a heavy stringer on, and a heavy stringer will cause it to flop like that. Now, even at best, it flops like that. That carp has got all that movement before it feels the way to the leg. If you put a heavy string on, that will ruin it. So if you're going to do anything, I would put a soluble stringer, because solubles are very, very light, and they tend to pop up flat, then they drop down slowly. And generally with this, I just use bits of solar foam, because I want it just to fall down like that. And that is the rig that will catch me 95% of my fish this year. I've caught fish from 3, 4, 5 pound at Chestnut to just under 50 pounds at National Church Pool. Bog standard rig. it's got lots of variants. If I'm fishing for a bigger fish, I use longer hook lengths and bigger hooks. If I'm fishing for smaller fish, I shorten it. I could use different coloured hook lengths. I can overshot, I can critically balance, I can use big baits, small baits, bigger hooks. So although it's a standard procedure, I could literally alter that by 8 or 9 different little components to make it a slightly different rig. But that is what I will use most of the year this year, and that'll catch most of my fish.